Good afternoon, Saitlanders. How are you? We hope sincerely that you are well in these difficult times. And I've just been doing some research for this video, and I had to quickly listen to Mr. Miller's most recent morning and evening sermons. I was just reminded, this is off the subject of this video. If you feel that you are living in difficult times and you want the solace of some sort of inside track, you want the solace of having a better idea of what's going on in the world than the people around you may have, guys, I recommend it strongly. I recommend it very strongly that you listen to those messages of those sermons of Mr. Miller in the morning and in the evening. I won't harp on the subject. I'll continue to mention it from time to time, but let's get on with this very, very urgent topic. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd, I believe. Wednesday, the 23rd of November. It's the afternoon. On the night of Monday, the 21st, so just about 24 hours ago, we began to receive copies of a voice note purportedly recorded by somebody at Old Mutual's head office or one of their major offices. Some people have suggested that it's the CEO. There is nothing in that voice note that indicates that it's the CEO. It may be, but there's nothing to indicate it. Some people have suggested that he may be a senior guy. He may be, but there is nothing whatsoever to suggest it. That's pure speculation. He talks about Old Mutual as if he's part of the furniture. Fine. He talks about the government informing the company, but not as if he took the phone call himself. Maybe he heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody. He talks about having to get people out of the building. That's not the CEO's job. That's one of the designated health and safety people in every department or on every floor. So, he's just a dude at Old Mutual, apparently. The voice note is unverified and it is anonymous. Therefore, according to those criteria, we'll provide the con, the pro and the con, we'll provide the con to the argument shortly. But on that basis, there is no reason to take it seriously. However, I remind you of what happened in 2020 when I went to Johannesburg to be near my children for June the 16th during the lockdown. I rented a house there, blah, blah, blah. You've all heard the story 100 dozen times. Why did I take that drastic action? It was because we, Saitlanders, received a voice note, an anonymous, unverified voice note from somebody who apparently worked at ABI or a similar type of company, saying that the head honchos had informed them, people such as himself, that they may have to shut the bottling lines over June the 16th because they anticipate or there may be violence, unrest, nationwide anarchy. Choose your favorite description. That was not enough to cause us to panic. Then we received personal, from somebody known to Saitlanders, somebody connected, not formally, but through relationships to Saitlanders, a senior person in a government state-owned enterprise. That person approached us and said, you know I'm not a Saitlander. You know I think Wimsina van Rensburg, I'm not a believer. I think it's all exaggerated. However, for whatever it's worth to you guys, I, as the head of a division of this state-owned enterprise, have been instructed not to permit any vehicles out of the compound in the week of June the 16th. In fact, this is somebody we know personally for many years, a very serious person. I have been instructed in writing not to let vehicles out, and in fact I have to have them all in the compound, a big compound. We're not talking about some local 53 vehicles, talking thousands. By the previous Thursday, I think it was. And they were to sit there and do no servicing over the entire weekend and in the beginning of the week of June the 16th. And so I chose to go up to Johannesburg to be with my sons. I wasn't panic-stricken, I wasn't hysterical, I was cool, calm and collected. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, but it was okay. So much so that on the morning of June the 16th, the landlord of the place that I was renting contacted me at whatever time it was, let's call it 8 o'clock. And I'd been lying in bed, working on WhatsApps, watching videos, doing the stuff that I do between roughly 4 and 7 or whatever in the morning. And somehow, in the fog of sleep, I'd completely forgotten it was June the 16th, in this doziness. We wake up and your first thoughts are, I wonder what's going on with the NASDAQ. Maybe I should see the US news. I wonder what BBC is reporting. Then you get caught up in it. And so for the hour and a half, whatever it was that I've been awake, 2 hours, whatever, I had somehow. So it just goes to show it's not hysteria, I think. Similarly, we're not being hysterical now. However, if you think that the largest corporations in South Africa do not have inside leads into the highest levels of government, such as this guy alludes to Trevor Manuel. I'm not saying that Trevor Manuel said anything to anybody. I am saying you are much mistaken if you don't recognize that the nexus of politics and business is a close nexus. So that they may be told something, have been told something, yes, surely. Surely, as ABI may have 2 years ago, and that state-owned enterprise may have 2 years ago. ABI, of course, being Amalgamated Beverage Industries, the South African breweries owned company that bottles Coca-Cola in South Africa. Is it likely that the entire grid is going to collapse? Maybe, maybe not. Is it likely that it would be down for 4 to 14 days? If it collapsed, yes. And in fact, I have, it's not a close contact, not a great friend, but a friend of a friend is famous within Eskom. He is, in fact, world famous. He is one of very, 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 very few people to have succeeded at such a high level in his field of science. He happens to be South African and happens to work for Eskom, but he is world renowned within his peer group. And his advice has been that the whole grid could not technically be up and running before 3 weeks were out. Not possible. So the 14 days, I don't know. I'm just saying if it goes down from what I've been told and described for this reason and that reason, then we have to use this, then we've got to use Sterkfontein Dam, but we can only use Sterkfontein Dam to excite, if that's the right word, such and such a other power station for this many hours, and then we've got to... In fact, he said to me, I would put my money on it taking closer to 3 months rather than 3 weeks to get the whole grid going again. In harmony, everything synchronized, balanced, phases, ripple effects, the stuff. This is not a standard 8 science experiment like your son had to do over the June-July holidays. Would Cyril Ramaphosa declare a state of emergency? I have no doubt about it. In a heartbeat, in the blink of an eye. Do I think that they're going to allow the system to go down now that it has been predicted? No way. No way! They will bend over backwards to ensure that this voice note is discredited and that the leak within Eskom, the leak from within the most senior, the C-suite, what they call the C-suite, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, and so on. The leak from the C-suite into upper management that then went into the... On principle, they will not allow that leak to be vindicated. And you'll probably find that they find a scapegoat, they discover who the guy is, if this note is true. It could be fanciful. If it is true, they'll find that guy, but you'll discover that over the next year, another 2 or 3 people will quietly leave. 2 or 3 people from the uppermost echelons of Old Mutual will quietly leave. They will persecute every last person who has so discredited Old Mutual in the face of the government and the world. I urge you to consider, as we bounce our way through this argument, reaching as many touch points as we can, trying to be as objective and sensible as we can, that voice is a somewhat familiar voice. The moment I heard it, I thought, is this not the fool who sent a similarly dramatic voice note about a year ago pertaining to violence on mines? After some consideration, I think not. There is one feature of the voice that is different. Now that may be staged, but it's a key feature. It's a very, very key feature. So I'm sitting on the fence. The previous guy had a homosexual upward inflection. Think about it. Before you liberals in the northern suburbs get all worked up, do gay men, not all of them, but do gay men with some measure of generalization not have an upward inflection in their voices, particularly at the ends of their sentences? The guy sounded like, not to be ugly, a moffie. Not a moffie, I want to stone all gay people to death. He sounded like a gay guy, an Afrikaans gay guy. And it could be staged. But I'm hesitant to say, yeah, for sure it's the same guy, when there is a conspicuous difference between the two voices. One single key difference that I must note. So with those two considerations in mind, the similarity and the difference, I'm going to sit on the fence and not apologize for it. Thank you very much. Internet banking off. Years ago, I used to, most of you have heard the story 1,000 times. I used to do a lot of work for the ANC, not directly, but indirectly. Just like any of you who works for Eskom, or who do you think at the end of the day? Right. I similarly, in my field of endeavor, I excelled. Therefore, I was not, let's say you work for Department of Roads. Somewhere, you do contract work. Who's your ultimate client? It's the African National Congress, in the form of the state. I similarly, that's my ultimate client. Now, the better I do, I'm no longer building roads between Lukov and Fourie Smith. I'm now building the roads in the presidency. Obviously. What do you think? I'm sorry if that sounds arrogant, but you have no idea how much stick I still get to this day. Stupid allegations, given that they've all been addressed. But anyway, I was working for these guys, and so I had to be very, I was trying to bekeer, to repent. You're trying very hard after years in an industry notorious for its filth. And so I wanted to do something that was conservative, that was true to the values of my father, my upbringing, the values in my heart and soul, the values that I had abandoned for so many years. And so a lot of what I was doing was, you can find it now, you can go and look for it, survivalistboards.com. Go into the South Africa section and see everything written by Frederick von Strassen. That was me. It was a scale naam. Obviously I used the scale naam. What do you think? And the scale naam came from a game that my sons and I used to play on long drives. My middle son would start asking questions, and he just would be the most curious mind. And eventually I would start giving him stupid answers, because I was just exhausted by his questioning. You know, this would endure for 5, 6, 7 hours. And Frederick von Strassenhausen-Grossen, that was the full name, was the man who supposedly built the tallest building, and the man who did this, and the man who did that. Right. On those forums, there was a guy who later left, who once shared with us an abundance of information that he alleged pertained to his job. He was quite cagey. He didn't give away enough to implicate himself. I suppose if you were a professional CID policeman, you could have tracked him down, caught him, yes, but not us on these forums, in which he revealed, and he showed photographs, the redundancies possessed by the banks of South Africa extend to entire buildings, empty, nobody in them, not one soul, except maintenance guys, with a chair for every key member of staff, a wireless Ethernet, fiber optic, the laptop, the computer. And he said they spared absolutely no expense whatsoever. And he said after a few years they would replace the stuff. If the entire bank moved on to, I don't know what, Microsoft 10, and those computers had Microsoft 8 on them, they would update the computers for people who would never use them. If the computers were not good enough to take Microsoft 10, they needed more disk space, hard RAM drive, what. They would replace every last computer. He showed us photographs of the stores of water alone that each of the big banks of South Africa possesses. He showed us Man, it was amazing. This is the redundancy that those banks possess in the event of an earthquake, volcano, tsunami, zombie apocalypse, you name it. So the likelihood that between Old Mutual and ABSA and Discovery and Capitec and what have you, that they don't have enough redundant physical architecture, let's say infrastructure, to last for more than 36 hours is to me absolutely improbable. I bet you that every one of those generators in those key head office Plan B redundancy locations could run for, I can't remember, I'm pretty sure he did tell us. I can't remember what it was, but I would, if I was to hazard a guess, 2 weeks at least. So I'm not so sure about that. Will the cell phone towers go down? Yeah. Will my ability to access internet banking? We've just mentioned cell phone towers. I'm using wireless to upload this video to you. Yeah. But internet banking is a thing? I'm not sure about that. Ankerlig and Goriqua are Eskom's, South Africa's, only two open cycle gas turbine electricity generators. They're meant to be backups. They're meant to be for emergency purposes. I beg your pardon. I broke a tooth. And if I talk very much, then it irritates the gum and the tongue and the so it can't be helped, and I'm sorry. They are only meant to be used for emergencies, as emergency backup support. But because of the severity of the malaise of Eskom in recent years, they've been running full tilt. So much so that we learned last week, was it last week? I think so, I believe so, beginning of last week. My tooth. That in the period, as I understood it, there have been contradictory reports from newspapers, in newspapers. As I understood it, between the 1st of April and the end of September, not October, April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months, Eskom used double what it had budgeted for the year, which was based on last year's running of the OCGTs. In other words, so in 6 months, which is half a year, it used double. So it used 4 times. 4 times what it used in 2021 when we thought load shedding and the end of the world had come. I'm trying to illustrate to you how much worse load shedding has gotten. You say, yes, but we can see it for ourselves. We're not stupid, Simon. Yeah, but you're not taking into account the fact that they're covering for so much more load shedding than we're experiencing by running the open cycle gas turbines at 4 times the rate that they ran in the previous worst scenario. It's severe, guys. It's very severe. They talk about maybe stage 10. What's stage 10? You play. If you do the maths, if 1 or 2 big power stations go down, and as this guy alludes, they take, if, I don't know, but if they take Kuiberg off, with these 2 off, man, well, what do I know? I'm a Mamparami. But I can think enough to say, well, we're on the verge of stage 8 in June, July. If you take out the 2 OCGTs and they've been running at 4 times the pace that they ran last year, and last year apparently was terrible. Then you take out Coburg. Stage 12 is just a number. It's not like something, you know, that's 4/5 of the grid. Simon, you're talking rubbish. I don't think so. I think it's just another number on the list of numbers. I think it's achievable. Really, really, I mean that sincerely. So I put it to you guys that this oak may be a bull duster. It may be an agent provocateur who's been deliberately required to agitate. It may be true. It may be a guy at Old Mutual. It may not. But I put it to you that very little of what he says is poppycock. That, by the way, is not a crass expression for those of you for whom it is unfamiliar. I put it to you that much as I think to myself, yeah, but I saw those photographs of ABSA and Nedbank's redundancies, and I don't think that. I think that if all the electricity went down, they'd be able to operate a lot of their services. I'm not talking about local ATMs that draw electricity from a local, a local municipality, or that draw their signal to communicate from a local internet service provider. Jan Rapp van Syferfontein se internetdienste. Nee. We're not talking about that will all be lost. But will the banks not be able to process anything? Will they not? Well, I'm not so sure about that. However, you see, I'm trying to play both sides of the argument. Be as absolutely objective and thoughtful as possible. However, at the end of the day, guys, I, Suidlanders, we solemnly warn you that even if that thing is the biggest load of bull dust, in as much as a dude is just doing it to cause trouble, 50, 60, 65, 70, 80% of what he had to say is quite plausible, and if it was realized, if it was manifest, if it came true, the way he puts the problem is inadequate. He's not dramatic enough. He's not melodramatic enough. He is not hysterical enough. He is not histrionic enough. He's painting it's a painting, watercolor painting. That's not oil painting. It will be very much worse than he describes it. If indeed we know that the OCGTs are off. Coburg shuts down for maintenance. Hugely overdue and very important maintenance. If there are some other plants that experience problems over the December, January, February, March period and beyond, and at some point the system becomes shaky and there's just a if those things happen, which is not to say that they will, but if they happen, this guy's going to look like he didn't cry wolf loud enough. So, I know this has been a very hectoring, ranting video. I half apologize, I half don't. I think it's an extremely important subject, and I think that it's time that Suidlanders, not only, but especially, start to realize that it doesn't matter anymore whether that voice note is true or not. The bulk of the substance of it, in light of events that have taken place recently, stage 6 load shedding, Ankerlig and Goriqua going offline after running at 400% more than in previous, ever. 400% more. Just in 6 months. Not 400% more. They've used double the diesel in half the time. I've said enough. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry if I got too worked up for some of your liking, but I do believe that just as I got very worked up 4 years ago when Cyril Ramaphosa was elected and I was the lone voice, nobody else, nobody, not one said what I said. I ranted and raved like a madman, saying, will you come to your senses, white South Africa? This is not a good thing. And to say that it's better, that this one devil is better than the other devil, is a false comparison. It's to play with language and ideas in a wrongful way. So, as I was worked up there, and as by the grace of God Almighty, we have been vindicated by now over this Ramaphosa, I hope that in years to come we can all look back on this video and say, yeah, he was behaving like a lunatic, but it was probably the right way to behave. Just as you would behave like a lunatic if you saw a child walk in front of a bus, or if you did really actually see a wolf coming into a village, you would behave like a lunatic until you got everybody's attention. It's serious, guys. Anyway, I've said enough. Thank you very much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, donate, help us. We appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, and God bless you for the times that lie ahead of us.